The morning started like any other episode of The View. The cheerful theme music echoed through the studio, the crowd clapped enthusiastically, and the hosts took their seats behind the familiar round table. Everything looked routine, but no one in that room knew what was about to unfold. Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments what you think really caused Keanu Reeves to completely lose it on live television. Joy Behar sat poised, ready to do what she does best: challenge, provoke, and stir things up. She had that unmistakable gleam in her eye, the one that always signaled trouble. Across from her sat the guest of the day, Keanu Reeves. Calm, collected, gracious as ever, the kind of guest that radiated peace no matter where he went. As he walked on stage, the audience erupted with cheers. Keanu, dressed in a sleek black suit and his signature quiet smile, greeted everyone with a polite wave before sitting down. His humility filled the room like a comforting presence. "Welcome to The View, Keanu," Whoopi Goldberg said warmly, smiling as the applause softened. "Thank you for having me," Keanu replied, his voice low and steady. "It's a pleasure to be here." The conversation began with the usual charm. They talked about his new film, his love of motorcycles, and his reputation for kindness, stories that always warmed the hearts of fans. He spoke with sincerity, never overhyping himself, never trying to dominate the conversation. But as the interview went on, one person at the table grew quieter and quieter. Joy Behar. Her silence was almost louder than words. She tapped her pen, studied her notes, and watched Keanu closely. Those who knew her could tell she was preparing something big. And then it happened. "You know, Keanu," Joy interrupted suddenly, cutting into his story mid-sentence, "I've got to ask you something that's been on my mind." The tone in her voice shifted the energy instantly. The other hosts exchanged glances. The audience sensed it too. Something was about to explode. "Of course," Keanu said calmly, turning toward her. "What would you like to ask?" Joy leaned forward, eyes glinting, a slight smirk forming on her lips. "Well, you've built this whole image of being this nice guy, humble, generous, down to earth. But tell me, is any of it actually real? Or is it just a really good PR act?" The studio fell into absolute silence. Keanu didn't react immediately. He sat there, still as stone, his expression unchanged, but his eyes sharper now. "I'm sorry," he said evenly. "Could you explain what you mean by that?" "Oh, come on," Joy continued, her voice growing louder. "You expect everyone to believe that a Hollywood superstar who's made millions is really that selfless? That all these stories about you helping people and giving away money, that they're not just publicity stunts?" The tension in the studio thickened. Whoopi shifted in her chair, clearly uncomfortable. "Joy," she began, trying to steer things back. But Joy wasn't finished. "Because let's be honest," she went on, gesturing dramatically, "normal people don't have cameras following them when they do good deeds. Normal people don't go viral for being kind. So forgive me if I'm skeptical of this whole saintly image you've got going on." For a brief moment, Keanu said nothing. His calm demeanor remained, but something in his expression hardened. The smallest flicker of frustration, barely visible, but undeniable. "Joy," he began softly, his voice firm but controlled. "I understand your job involves asking questions, but there's a difference between skepticism and cruelty." "Cruelty?" Joy laughed, leaning back in her chair. "Oh, please, I'm doing my job, asking what everyone's thinking. You want cruel? Try manipulating people's emotions to sell movie tickets." That was when Keanu's calm finally began to crack. "You want to talk about manipulation?" he said, his voice low, his eyes locked on hers. "Let's talk about that." The audience went completely still. Keanu leaned slightly forward, his tone sharper now. "You sit here every day, tearing people down for entertainment. You take genuine kindness, genuine grief, and twist it into something ugly, just because it keeps people watching." Joy blinked, surprised by the directness of his words, but she wasn't about to back down. I'm a journalist, she snapped. I ask tough questions. If you can't handle that, maybe you shouldn't be doing interviews. Keanu's jaw tightened. The composure he was known for was fading. If you want to ask tough questions, he said evenly, then ask about my work. Ask about the craft. But don't sit here and question whether my pain, my compassion, or my humanity is real. His words hit the table like thunder. The audience shifted in their seats, the air thick with tension. The hosts looked from one to the other, unsure how to intervene. You can't separate those things, Joy, Keanu continued, his voice rising now. Not angry, but powerful. When you accuse someone of being fake for showing kindness, you're attacking the very idea that goodness exists. Joy rolled her eyes, clearly uncomfortable. You're being dramatic. I never said anything about your personal tragedies. Keanu cut her off, his voice trembling with controlled emotion. When you question someone's kindness, you are questioning their heart. You're telling people that caring isn't real. That's not journalism. That's cruelty dressed as curiosity. Whoopi leaned forward again, trying to diffuse the growing fire. Maybe we should move on to... No, Keanu interrupted, still staring directly at Joy. Let her finish. She clearly has more to say. Joy bristled. Fine, she snapped. You do all these good deeds, help strangers, give away salaries, but you make sure people know about it. That's not kindness. That's good marketing. Keanu's eyes darkened. Do you really believe that? He asked quietly. Yes, Joy replied firmly. I do. Keanu took a deep breath, then spoke with quiet intensity. You want to know what's calculated, Joy? What's really planned and performed? This. He gestured toward the cameras, the lights, the audience. This show. This moment. You creating conflict just to keep people watching. That's calculation. The room fell still again. Joy laughed nervously, trying to regain her rhythm. I'm being honest, she said. If you can't take a little heat, maybe you're not as calm as you pretend to be. Keanu leaned forward, eyes sharp. Honest? Honesty isn't about being cruel. Honesty is about truth. And the truth, Joy, is that you use your platform not to question, but to wound. Keanu took a deep breath, his calm slowly returning. But now his words carried an unmistakable fire. You talk about being real, Joy. Let me tell you what's real. Pain is real. Loss is real. Trying every single day to be a decent person in a world that makes it hard. That's real. The studio was silent again. Every eye was locked on Keanu. He continued, voice steady but fierce. You say you're a journalist, that you're just asking questions. But what you're doing isn't journalism. It's character assassination, disguised as curiosity. Joy's lips tightened. You're overreacting. I'm simply holding you accountable, like I would anyone else. Keanu leaned forward. Accountability? No. You're not holding me accountable. You're punishing me for being kind. You're telling the world that being good can't possibly be genuine. And that's the saddest thing I've ever heard. The audience shifted again, and a faint murmur rippled through the room. Tell me, Joy, Keanu said softly but firmly. When did we start believing that compassion is fake? When did we decide that kindness has to come with a hidden motive? Because that says more about you and about this industry than it ever will about me. Joy crossed her arms, trying to maintain control. You're twisting my words. Keanu shook his head. No, I'm revealing them. For a long moment, there was nothing but silence. You could almost hear the cameras whirring as they captured every detail. Joy's tightened jaw, Keanu's piercing stare, the nervous glances from the other hosts. Finally, Joy spoke again, her voice sharp. So what? You can't handle criticism? That's what this looks like. Criticism? Keanu repeated slowly. Criticism helps people grow. But this, he gestured toward her with calm precision. This was meant to tear down. You came here today to poke holes in something that didn't need fixing. Joy's face flushed slightly. You're just proving my point. The real you, the one who gets angry when challenged, is finally showing. Keanu's eyes narrowed, but his tone softened. The real me is human, and sometimes humans get tired of being treated like they're lying for trying to do good. Whoopi interjected gently, maybe we should take a short break. But Keanu raised his hand slightly. No, let's finish this. He looked directly at Joy again. You know, Joy, I've lost people I love, friends, family, people who made me believe that goodness still matters. And when I try to honor them by living that way, by giving, by helping, by showing compassion, people like you call it fake. Joy shifted uncomfortably, avoiding eye contact now. Keanu's voice grew softer, more emotional. I don't do these things for recognition. Most of the time, no one even knows about them until someone else talks. But you see a man trying to make the world a little less painful, and your first instinct is to accuse him of pretending. Why? The words hit hard. Even the co-host looked visibly moved. Whoopi's eyes glistened as she watched Keanu's composed but heartfelt demeanor. Joy finally spoke, quieter now. Because people aren't perfect, Keanu, and sometimes what looks good on the outside isn't what it seems. That's true, Keanu admitted. But that doesn't mean every good thing is a lie. That doesn't mean every act of kindness is strategy. Maybe, just maybe, there are still people out there who care without needing to prove it. The tension in the room was heavy now, thick enough to feel. Joy exhaled sharply. You're taking this too personally. Keanu gave a faint, sad smile. How else should I take it when someone questions who I am? Not my work, not my acting, but my heart? The audience murmured softly, a mix of sympathy and disbelief at what they were witnessing. Keanu continued, his voice calm again, but resolute. You know what I think, Joy? You don't actually believe what you're saying. I think you just don't know how to accept that some people choose kindness over cynicism. Joy's mouth opened as if to respond, but nothing came out. Keanu leaned back, eyes still on her. And maybe that's why you're angry. Because kindness reminds you of something you lost a long time ago. The belief that good still exists. The silence that followed was deafening. The audience didn't move, the cameras didn't cut. Even the crew seemed frozen in disbelief. Finally, Joy looked down, pretending to shuffle her notes, but everyone could see the flicker of discomfort in her expression. Keanu stood slowly, buttoning his jacket, his voice quiet but steady. You wanted honesty. That's it. And now I think we're done. He took a step back, then turned toward the other hosts. Thank you for letting me speak. Before leaving, he looked back at Joy one last time. I hope someday you realize that tearing others down doesn't make you stronger. It just makes the world a little colder. He walked off stage without another word. The audience didn't clap right away. They just sat there, stunned, processing what they had just witnessed. Then, as the shock faded, a slow wave of applause began. It started softly, then grew louder, filling the studio with the sound of people who had just witnessed something raw, real, and unforgettable. Joy Behar remained at the table, silent, her expression unreadable. Whoopi finally turned toward the camera, her voice quiet but composed. We'll be right back. The show cut to commercial. But even after the screens faded to black, one truth hung in the air. For the first time ever, Keanu Reeves had reached his breaking point, and it was something no one would ever forget. When the cameras cut away, the studio remained frozen. No one moved, no one spoke. The crew members exchanged uncertain glances, still stunned by what they had witnessed. The energy in the room was electric, not from excitement, but from shock. Joy Behar sat stiffly, clutching her notes. Her confident expression was gone. The color had drained from her face, replaced by something rare for her, uncertainty. Whoopi leaned toward her and whispered something, but Joy didn't respond. She just stared at the empty seat where Keanu had been sitting moments before. Behind the scenes, producers rushed around frantically, whispering into headsets. Some were debating whether to cut that segment entirely, while others argued it was too explosive not to air. It was television gold, the kind of unscripted drama that would dominate headlines for weeks. Meanwhile, in the hallway outside, Keanu was walking calmly toward the exit. His stride was steady, his face unreadable. A few staff members tried to speak to him, but he simply nodded politely and kept going. There was no shouting, no storming off, just quiet dignity. The same kind he had carried his entire career, even in moments like this. Within hours, social media exploded. Clips of the confrontation began spreading online like wildfire. "Keanu Reeves finally snaps on live TV," one headline screamed. Another read, "Joy Behar crosses the line, and Keanu puts her in her place." Millions of people were watching, rewatching, and sharing every second of that exchange. Comment sections filled with shock, anger, and awe. "Finally, someone stood up to her," one viewer wrote. "He said everything people have been wanting to say for years," another commented. Others expressed concern. "I've never seen Keanu like that. He must have really been pushed too far." News outlets picked up the story almost immediately. By that evening, it was everywhere, from entertainment shows to serious news segments. Some defended Joy, calling it a necessary confrontation about celebrity authenticity. But most people sided with Keanu, because what they saw wasn't arrogance, it was pain, real raw pain that had finally surfaced after years of being patient, polite, and composed. The following morning, The View was trending at #1 across every platform. The network issued a short statement acknowledging the incident, calling it an emotionally charged exchange that reflected differing opinions. But everyone knew that was just damage control. Fans around the world flooded Keanu's social media with messages of support. Thousands wrote about how his words had touched them, how he had spoken truth to cruelty. One viral post summed it up perfectly. Keanu didn't lose his temper. He found his voice. Meanwhile, Joy Behar avoided the spotlight. She didn't appear on the show for 2 days, and when she finally returned, she brushed off the incident with a strained smile. "We had a little disagreement," she said lightly. "That's television." But everyone watching could tell something had changed. Her co-hosts seemed more cautious, their usual banter slightly muted. The air on set felt different, heavier somehow. Even the audience, usually quick to laugh or applaud, seemed unsure of how to react. Behind the scenes, rumors swirled. Some insiders claimed Joy had been reprimanded by producers for pushing too far. Others said she had refused to apologize, insisting she was simply doing her job. But the public wasn't convinced. In online forums and talk shows, the debate raged on. Was Joy out of line? Did Keanu overreact? Or was this a moment of truth that Hollywood desperately needed? One commentator put it best during a late-night panel discussion. What happened on The View wasn't just a celebrity losing his cool. It was a man, finally, standing up for the idea that kindness still matters, and calling out a culture that's forgotten what sincerity looks like. That quote went viral, too. And as the days turned into weeks, the moment became more than just a trending topic. It became a symbol. People began sharing their own stories of being misunderstood for doing good things. Hashtags like "Ma kindness is real" and "We stand with Keanu" started circulating across social media. Even other celebrities chimed in. Actors, musicians, and directors spoke out, praising Keanu for staying true to his principles. One well-known actress wrote, "In an industry built on image, authenticity is rebellion." Keanu reminded us of that. Despite the media storm, Keanu remained silent. He didn't post any statements, he didn't give interviews, he didn't fan the flames, and that silence only made the moment more powerful. People respected him even more for it. A week later, paparazzi photos surfaced, showing him quietly buying groceries, smiling at a fan, holding the door open for an elderly woman. No entourage, no fuss, just Keanu being Keanu. And that's when the narrative shifted again. It wasn't just about a heated TV moment anymore. It became a reflection of something deeper, the way society treats kindness, humility, and authenticity. Commentators on morning shows began discussing it as a cultural turning point. "Why are we so quick to question good intentions?" one host asked. "Maybe we're the cynical ones, not him." Meanwhile, the view ratings temporarily spiked. Curiosity drew people in, but the tone of the show never fully recovered. Every question Joy asked after that seemed to hang in the air a little longer, as if people were waiting to see if she'd cross another line. Even months later, the clip continued to resurface online. People would comment things like, "Still gives me chills," or "He said what needed to be said." It wasn't just a viral argument. It was a mirror held up to an industry and to the audience watching at home. Keanu Reeves had not only defended his name that day, he had reminded the world of something far more important, that being kind shouldn't need defending at all.